Hi, I'm Marty and I have rheumatoid arthritis. I was diagnosed 37 years ago at the age of 30. I'm 67 now. And when I was first diagnosed, it was pretty bad. I woke up, my husband had already left for work. He left early in the morning. We had a 2-week-old newborn baby. I just had a cesarean and was recovering. And we also had a 3-year-old, very hyperactive child down the hall in his room. So I woke up and my hands were like this. My elbows were stuck. My jaw was like this. My knees were in intense pain. My feet, it felt like my toes were going to blow off. And when I put my feet on the floor, oh my gosh, I'd never felt such pain in my life. So that was the first day that I had a really intense flare with rheumatoid arthritis. I'd have had wrist pain before and went to the doctor and they said, oh, you've got tendonitis, and gave me 2 wrist Velcro things and said if it doesn't stop, we'll have to put them in a cast, which I never went back. I just wore those Velcro things until it stopped hurting, which took a long time. When I woke up in that condition, I knew I needed help instantly. And my husband was across town working. He owned his own business. And so I called my mother, who lived a few miles away, and she came over, took the babies to my neighbor's house, and my mother and I went to an urgent care. That doctor was amazing because he was able to identify what was wrong with me. At first he thought tetanus because I just had surgery and my jaw was stuck. So if your jaw is stuck like that and you can't move, that's one of the signs of having tetanus. So he thought maybe I had tetanus. But I had a tetanus shot, so I didn't have tetanus. Then he thought he had blood work and he sent in his office. They used to do it right there. So I don't know how he got it so quick because I found my answer that same day. While we were waiting, he said, you could have MS or you could have lupus, possibly tetanus, but no. And then my mom and I went for lunch and we came back and he said, aha, you have rheumatoid arthritis. I'm so very sorry. And I thought, oh, thank God, because that's the lesser of the 3, lupus and MS and rheumatoid arthritis. I'd much rather have rheumatoid arthritis. Back in 1987, there wasn't much for people with rheumatoid arthritis. Gold shots. I don't know if Plaquenil was available then or if it came out a few years later. I took the gambit of what was available, but I was nursing my baby, and I knew that was my last baby. I'd had a tubal ligation, and I didn't want to not nurse him because my older child was preemie and wasn't nursed, because back then they thought that if you give him this 24 kilocalorie formula, that was better than nursing, because it was such high calories and he didn't have to work so hard for it. So he didn't get nursed, and he had asthma and eczema, and I thought, I'm going to nurse this one, get all those good antibodies in him as long as he'll nurse. And so instead of taking the big guns at first, I suffered through it for my baby, and it was really worth it because he's the healthiest kid you've ever met. He's 37 years old and rarely gets sick. As a child, rarely got sick, and he watched his brother catch everything that came down the pike. So he's pretty lucky. Not lucky from me, but he's lucky he doesn't get sick. So here we had a newborn baby, and I was diagnosed. I didn't want to stop nursing, and so that doctor started me on a NSAID that wouldn't hurt my breast milk, and that was pretty much it. That's all I took. I went to a bad rheumatologist that I disliked very much. Hate is a strong word, but it sure does cross my mind because she was mean. And never saw her again after that one visit. I moved out of town and found a fabulous rheumatologist, and he changed my life. He did. He changed my world. It was a huge difference. Not just because new medicines were out, because they were not, but he was willing to try. Once I stopped nursing, I started with him. He was willing to try the medications that were new that hadn't been tried yet. A few years down the road, methotrexate was new to rheumatoid arthritis patients, and I was one of his first patients he put on it. 11 years down the road was the first biologic that came out, and I'll tell you my story. I said I was going to tell you before, but I never did. I was in really bad shape. I couldn't walk. I couldn't wipe myself. I couldn't get to the toilet. Just couldn't do anything. I wore a nightgown with no panties because I couldn't pull those down. And my husband, who I used to say that God sent him to me because he's twice my size. I'm 5'2". I was 5'2". I'm 5'1" now, and he's 6'6", and he's always weighed twice what I weigh. So he's my green giant, and he's strong, and he can lift me. So without any trouble at all, he would lift me out of bed and put me on the toilet and give me my privacy, and then come back and help me because I couldn't do anything with my hands. My hands were so bent and so ruined from flare after flare after flare, and so much pain because I was in just a constant humongous flare at that time. My children were little. They were in elementary school maybe, and I was in bad shape, and there was no hope. I felt hopeless. I felt terrible. And I thought, here we are. I married the nicest guy. We've been happily married. Our kids are good. I've imprinted on them the important things in life. So my husband had come in and given me my pills for the night, and I'd made a decision. And I didn't tell him because he would have thought I was crazy and ran me to the hospital. But I decided that night I was going to ask God to please take me, because he was still young and handsome. He's still handsome and young to me, but he was still young and handsome, and to be available on the market at that time would have been fine for him. He would have found somebody else, and we'd already talked about that. If something happens to one of us, find somebody else. Show that you like being married to me. Get married again. So I said my prayers after he left. Please, God, take me. I can't do this anymore. It's not fair to my children. It's not fair to my husband. It's not fair to me. And I went to sleep, and I slept so well that night because I knew that during the night the angels were coming. I knew I was going to heaven, and I was ready. And it's raining. So that morning I woke up and the phone was ringing, and I thought, there are no phones in heaven. What is that? And lo and behold, it was my doctor, Dr. Sheldon, who I talked about before. I call him Sheldon after the Big Bang Theory. I think he might have been on the spectrum a little bit, but he was wonderful and very kind and very nice, and he loved his patients. So he called me, and it was a Sunday morning, and he said, I'm so sorry to call you on a Sunday morning, but I couldn't sleep last night. Couldn't sleep last night? I couldn't get you off my mind. I tried to sleep, and all I could think about was you and your health and what we could do to give you your life back, because there's no reason for you to have to live like this. It's like, really? No. So he went to his office in the middle of the night and started reading all of the new stuff that was out. And one of the new things that he read about was Enbrel, the biologic that had just come out. And it was just finished with testing, and it really hadn't hit the offices yet, the doctor's offices yet. But he had heard rumblings about it, and he wanted to learn more. And so he called me and saved me. I wouldn't kill myself, but I certainly was asking God to please take me. And here comes little Dr. Sheldon. I'm Catholic, I'm Christian. He's Jewish. It doesn't matter. We all have a God. My doctor is Sikh, sweetest religion on earth. He's the kindest man you ever knew. The important part about being Sikh is to do good for others, to be kind and do good to others. What kind of a doctor would that be? He's the best doctor ever. So that's my current doctor, the Sikh doctor. S-I-K-H, I think is how it's spelled. So Dr. Sheldon called me, told me there was something, and to please come into his office on Monday because he really wanted to talk to me about it. So my husband and I went in because I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get dressed. I couldn't drive. I couldn't get my kids ready for school. I couldn't do anything. And so he took me to the office. I think I was using a wheelchair or a walker. I think a walker, maybe a wheelchair. I think he put me in a wheelchair. Got there, and Dr. Sheldon showed me the paperwork about it and what he'd learned. Now, this is before computers, so he wasn't popping open a computer. This is paperwork. Magazines from the Arthritis Foundation and from Dr. whatever foundations, whatever the doctors look at to learn more about their disease that they treat. And he said, as soon as it comes in, Miss Watson, you'll be my first patient. And by the way, when I do call people, it's during the day, and I usually go alphabetically. But because you were on my mind so strongly, I called you on a Sunday, and you're a W. So there must be a reason that you were on my mind. And I truly believe that it has to do with him. That's what Dr. Sheldon said to me. The doctor that didn't talk. It was incredible. So, do you have chill bumps yet? I get chill bumps every time I think about it. It was amazing. Maybe a few weeks, a month later, I was called back in the office. The nurse said, it's come, you need to come in now. Mark came home from work. He took off of work, came home, and drove me to the office. It was about 10 miles from my home. And the shots were there. And he taught me how to gently stir the shot. You did it like this. I think it was already like pre-filled syringes. And you didn't shake them, you stirred them real gently. And he taught me how to give myself a shot simply by saying, wipe it with this, go in a circle, don't touch it, hold your skin up around it, and then you're gonna do it like this. 1, 2, 3, bam, and don't slow down. It's like how fast? He goes this fast. 1, 2, 3, bam, but don't slow down. And when you feel your skin going, just keep going. That's how he taught me to do a shot. I didn't use an orange, like you hear people learn how to do shots on oranges. No, he just said, just do it. So I just did it because it could save me. But guess what? Once it was in my skin, I couldn't push the button. My husband had to push it in. Pushed it in a little too fast and it burned. So the next time he did it slower. But that's it. That's what happened. That's Dr. Sheldon and Enbrel, my first dose of Enbrel. My husband got me back into the car. We got home. Without even thinking, 10 miles away, we got home. And we went straight home from the doctor's office. Without even thinking, I was able to open my seatbelt. He had gotten out of the car and was coming around to my side to get me out. Probably in the back getting my wheelchair out or something. I was able to open my seatbelt. We had a minivan at the time. I was able to hop out of the minivan and walk around the back of the car before I realized what I was even doing. It was just natural to get out of the car and walk on around back to go into the kitchen through the garage. And my husband was standing there and he saw me coming and he was like, and then I realized what was happening and it's like, it must be a placebo effect. So I ran in, boop, 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 boop. No, actually, was it? Yeah, push button phones were then. Boop, 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 boop. Called the doctor on the phone and got the nurse. And I said, I have to talk to Dr. Sheldon right now, this very moment. It's so important. If he's with a patient, I've got to talk to him. Nothing's bad. Everything's good. And I have to talk to him. And so she interrupted a patient visit and brought him to the front office to talk to me on the phone. And I was like, is this a placebo effect? And he said, some people notice a difference very, very quickly, according to the paperwork I've read. Maybe it's you. It was me. The person who prayed to God got the immediate effect, felt amazing. I was able to play with my children, tie shoes, pull up my underwear, take a shower without help. I could do anything. I was like a normal almost a normal person. I still was having flares, so he added methotrexate. Again, I'd taken it before and it stopped working. So this time he added methotrexate shots because they weren't absorbing in my system when they were pills. So he added the methotrexate shots. It's kind of a neon green color shot, which kind of grossed me out. But other than that, they worked. So the combination between the shot and the Enbrel really did give me my life back. It was the beginning of something new, the beginning of biologics. Back then they called them biologicals, and on some of my old videos I accidentally said biologicals, but it was the beginning of biologics. Methotrexate was still in its babyhood. I think it had been around for about 7 or 8 years it was long term for cancer, but for rheumatoid arthritis it had been around 7 or 8 years. And I had my life back. It was great. It was amazing. So that's my story about praying to die and not dying. So God has a reason for me to be here. Maybe it's to make videos to help you feel better, to encourage you to feel better and to do better and to search for the right rheumatologist if you get the wrong rheumatologist. Shortly after I started using Enbrel, my husband's insurance changed and my doctor was not on the list, and I had to try another doctor. And anytime I said to her that something hurt, because the Enbrel was starting to phase out on me, things don't last that long on me, or didn't at that time. So after, I don't know, between 3 and 6 months, it wasn't working at all. But there was hope because there were new medications. The lady doctor that I went to, anytime I'd say, I'm hurting, my shoulders, I can't lay down, my shoulders hurt so bad, I have to put pillows on either side, and she would say, well, you are getting older. And I was 35, maybe 39, 40. I wasn't old. Wait, it was 11 years after I got rheumatoid arthritis. When I was diagnosed, I was 30, so I was 41. That's not old. That's not old enough to have shoulders hurting. That's not old enough to have knees hurting or jaws hurting or the same things that had been hurting before with rheumatoid arthritis. And that was her excuse every time I saw her. So I switched from her to another doctor who told me that I was a crybaby. And I'm not a crybaby. And I switched from him back to Dr. Sheldon. I paid for an outside doctor because I knew he was the good doctor and I needed him. And he got me back to where I was before, when I first started taking the Enbrel with a different medication. And it took about 2 years before I finally got back to him, but I knew I couldn't deal with these other doctors that I didn't like. So if you don't like your doctor, find another one. If you have to pay more money and you have the money to pay it. I would rather eat beanie weenies and instead of not seeing the doctor that's going to be best for me. So I feel blessed. I hope I'm blessing you. I'd love it if you shared this with your friends to let them know that there is hope, that prayer works. Even if you pray for the wrong thing, God knows the right thing for you. And that doctors also work, and they also pray, and they also are instruments from God. So it's special to me. This is a special story, and I was hesitant to share it. My religion and my feelings about why Dr. Sheldon called me that morning, couldn't sleep that night, and found the cure for me that gave me my life back. I'd love it if you'd subscribe and give me a thumbs up. It puts me higher on the YouTube matrix so more people can see my videos and maybe I can help them too. So you guys have a great day. Don't let your disabilities define who you are. Bye-bye.